Hi, and thank you for tuning into this video. It's been a while since I've spoken about the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda, because I kind of feel like whatever I have to say about him, I've already said. When new victims of his abuse, like my friend Jordan Lozada, are ready to come forward, I'm always here to interview them, like in the last video I made on the topic. But other than that, I've shared what I had to share about being brainwashed, about his sexual abuse towards me, about his violent abuse towards the kids. But now I felt compelled to make just one more video as an appeal to the sanity of those who are still currently brainwashed. Jordan Kremer, Jillian Doak, the people who are still sitting in his ridiculous sad songs, which is what us ex-followers have started to call his so-called satsang, because there's nothing divine or uplifting about it. This fraud has recently declared that all of his disciples have to pay 10% of their annual income to him. Now, I don't watch his ridiculous self-aggrandizing speeches anymore because they only serve the purpose of his attempt to drive his fake mission forward by keeping people locked in fear. And a lot of us who have left that cult, I would say it's better to avoid watching his videos because they're so creepy and they're so disturbing that a lot of people have started getting nightmares after watching them. I still get messages from people who are recently out of the cult saying that he appears in their dreams and he seems demonic and he seems frightening. Now, of course, some people feel that that's black magic that he's doing. Others might say it's just the psychological residue of his negative impact on their lives during the time when he was their central focus. Whether it's psychological or some form of dark, mystical manipulation, either way, that's just the kind of bullshit energy we don't want or need in our lives, so why watch it? But there are some troopers out there who are completely out of the cult, and yet they like to keep tabs on him. So they still watch his sad songs every day, and they report into our Nithyananda Cult Survivors official Facebook group what ridiculous nonsense he is spouting now, and how his brainwashed people are just eating it up and believing it. So this latest thing, it's kind of like the religious tithing that would go on in Christian groups. For example, Mormons make their members pay 10% of their annual income. And they even have something like an annual auditing where they make sure that the people didn't shortchange them and that they gave to their church the 10% of their hard-earned money. This is something that the old Nithyananda, the person I started following back in 2009 when I thought he was like a legit enlightened guru, he used to say that that's a deplorable practice and that one of the faults of Christianity is that greedy ministers and greedy churches demand that their members pay 10% of their income. Well, now he's doing the same damn thing. The level of contradictions that he has made recently have compelled me to make another video ranting about his ridiculousness because, sometimes we just have to get it out. So, for example, another thing he has said that was against Christianity that sucked me in because I totally agree with him. He used to say that any religion that tells you that there's a heaven or a hell is trying to motivate you through greed and fear, and that you should avoid those religions because they're just psychologically pulling your strings to make you do their bidding. This is what he used to say about Christianity. Fast forward a few years, and a few rape cases, and a few allegations of child abuse and racketeering, and him fleeing the country, running away from his bail because he knows he's guilty. And he is telling his brainwashed followers that if they continue to obey him, they will go to Adi Kailasa, to this ultimate abode of Lord Shiva. And that if they don't obey him, they will go to hell. He literally used the word hell. And I'm sure that's because there's no actual Sanskrit equivalent word, so he has to use the English word hell, because true Vedic spirituality, Sanatana Dharma, is so far beyond his control mechanisms and his stupidity that there are no actual words for the shit he's trying to feed people these days. He literally said that anybody who is speaking out against him, myself included, are demons. And this is just absolutely batshit crazy, because if he actually was an incarnation of Lord Mahasadashiva, as he claims himself to be, he would have had the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient capacity to recognize that we were demons, if in fact we were, which we're not. If we had been implanted in his Sangha, which he claims we were, to take him down, which we weren't. We were just brainwashed like everybody else, trying to make him happy. If he in fact were an incarnation of Shiva, he would have recognized that from the beginning. Now, he tells his brainwashed followers that the reason he took us in, even though we were implants, even though, some days he says that we were paid by Christian missionaries, other days he says we're demons. Okay, so he claims that this was done out of compassion, that Lord Shiva has compassion for all souls. And so he allows even demons or even Christian missionaries to infiltrate his organization out of compassion for them. While that might be true, I say might really loosely, okay, so given the benefit of the doubt, if that were the case, he would have put us into positions doing menial labor, like so many others were. He would have sent us to branch campuses, like so many were. He wouldn't have decked us out in jewels and put us on stage to speak for him, which he did in my case. He had me standing on his stage in the Raja Sabha giving satsang for him because his lazy ass couldn't drag its fat butt out of bed every morning. There were days when I was standing on stage, so-called introducing him before he comes out to deliver his speech. And I would be told, okay, go talk for 15 minutes, sum up yesterday's discourse, introduce him. And so the 15 minutes would be coming up to an end. I'd be finishing whatever I was saying, regurgitating his previous day's message. And suddenly Manyanatma Swami from the tech pit, and she was the lady in charge of all the programs and stuff, suddenly she'd frantically start gesturing me to keep talking. And then she'd flash a message on the screen in the tech pit where she used to project notes to him, like corrections in his pronunciation or names of people whose birthdays were happening that he forgot about. So it looked like he always knew what to say. Really, it was Nyanatma and her research team telling him what to say. She would project on the screen, Swamiji, as they all called him. Really, he's more like a Scamiji. She would project and say, he's not coming today, so wrap it up. And then they would play a recorded so-called satsang. Or she'd say, he's not coming today, so make all of them, go into prayaschita, or make all of them search themselves to find out why their space hasn't done enough to welcome him to the stage. They should yearn for him more. He would have all intentions of coming out to give a speech, and then he would fall asleep or get sidetracked or just be lazy and not come. So he would make me tell everybody else that they had to do completion in order for him to reappear. He never owned up to his own mistakes. And one of the most frustrating things in retrospect is that every single brainwashed disciple of his living in his place as a subservient to him, we worked our butts off. We strove and made it our 100% mission in life. Our highest effort was given to doing everything he told us to do, when he told us to do it, how he told us to do it, to get the results he demanded, even though half of them were damn near impossible to achieve. And if we ever failed in some impossible task he gave us, we had to do completion, which is basically self-chastisement and punish ourselves internally for not having integrity to his guru vok, to his so-called command. And yet when he made very realistic goals for himself, when he set really achievable goals, and out of his laziness and his ineptitude, he failed to do the due diligence to his disciples that these people who had paid $10,000 or more to get from him. For example, when program participants paid $16,000 to attend a 31-day boot camp called Mahasadashivoham, when he promised those people that for their $16,000 they would manifest powers of the third eye and that he would see them every single day, when a week went by during that program where he didn't grace the stage with his ugly presence even once, he did like a victim shaming on them and blamed them and said because they're not manifesting powers, he's not going to appear in front of them. And it's so maddening because it was the ultimate gaslighting. Imagine that you believe a human being, a very flawed, greedy, narcissistic, psychopathic human being, just imagine for a second, you believe that really flawed individual is God Almighty, who has come down to planet Earth in that form in order to give you enlightenment and to help you achieve your ultimate purpose in this world and to become the best version of yourself. Imagine you start following that human being, thinking they're God, and so every word they tell you is a command, is a really sacred command. Okay, I watched this Netflix special with Sarah Silverman a while ago, and she's just freaking hilarious. Like, I highly recommend people watch some comedy routines during this time of COVID-19 coronavirus self jailing. During this time, watch some comedy because we need to lighten up a bit. Anyhow, this Sarah Silverman comedy act, in the middle of it, she kind of interrupts her train of thought, much like I'm doing with this little anecdote. And she calls into the audience and says, okay, are any of you here religious? And a bunch of people's hands go up. And she's like, okay, no, I'm not talking about, Jack Catholics or you're born Jewish like she is. She says, like me, but don't really believe in all of that stuff. She's asking them, how many of you are really, truly religious? Like, if God came down and told you, build an ark, you'd build that ark. And like there were a few hands still up. So she called on one poor guy and she said, okay, sir, your hand is still up. That's brave of you. So you are religious. You believe that what's in the Bible is word for word, verbatim, the word of God, total truth. Is that correct? And this poor dude says yes. So Sarah Silverman, totally straight-faced, she asks him, okay, if God appeared in front of you right now and told you to suck his dick, would you do it? And the guy said no. And she said, then you are not really religious. The reason I'm sharing this rather disgusting little aside is that in the case of the sexual abusive fraud guru who calls himself Nithyananda, I think that her scale, Sarah Silverman's scale to determine whether or not somebody is a true believer, can be applied to a lot of us who were brainwashed. Because when we were put into that really awkward, uncomfortable position by the flawed, greedy human being who we thought was God himself in form, when he told us to touch his dick, to suck his dick, to stroke his dick, thank God in my case it only went as far as stroking it, but some people experienced much worse abuse than I did. When he told us to do something, we did it because we believed we had to. That is just messed up. And, I was really confused and uncertain about myself even when I deprogrammed and left that cult because I had trouble trying to figure out what that he said was false and was indoctrination and was brainwashing and what, if anything, did he say that was true. I had stopped reading tarot cards because he told me back then tarot is not Hindu and so I should learn Vedic astrology instead. But damn it, I love tarot cards. I love reading them. I love crystals and crystal energy. Like this white opal necklace I'm wearing right now. I did a video about precious white opal earlier that I may upload right after this one. But anyhow, I had a really off-balanced energy when I left his cult because I felt ashamed that I had let myself get brainwashed. I felt embarrassed that I had gone along with so many of his sickeningly bad plans just because I thought I had to and that he was God. And I think that at this point in time, a lot of people who are still brainwashed by him will be starting to feel the uneasiness that I felt in Toronto when those two kids from his Gurukul told me that they had been beaten. There are probably a lot of people who heard him say that they have to donate 10% of their annual income, who are now thinking, but wait a minute, he used to say tithing is wrong and that it's part of the reason we shouldn't be Christian. Those people might hear him say that if they don't follow him, they'll go to hell. And they'll be thinking, well, wait a minute. He used to say, don't follow a religion out of fear or greed. The greed for Kailash or the fear of hell. I think that the worst manipulation he's doing to his brainwashed followers at this point in time is that he had the audacity to tell them that if they claim that they're sending him that 10% of their income, but they try to pull a fast one by only sending $100 and claiming that their annual income is $1,000. I shit you not, he had the audacity to abuse the name of Lord Kalabhairava and say that he will see to it that Kalabhairava ensures their income will actually become just $1,000. And so the amount of fear he's putting these people into, they are literally spiritually terrorized into giving this absconded rapist 10% of their income so he can keep living it up in the luxury, running away from his court dates. And they're afraid that if they don't do that, some divine mystical power is going to cut their salary down to $1,000 a year. Now, there's a lot of global panic going on right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. People are losing their income. There are people who are housebound because their job place is closed and they don't know when they're going to get their next paycheck. People like me who, my living comes from my Etsy shop. When customers are afraid to shop online because their income is uncertain, my income becomes destabilized. And, at this time, I'd like to say thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. Because of you guys, I know that I'll always have enough to pay my internet bill so I can keep making content like this and uploading it. And I'm going to do a special video just for my patrons later because, I feel so grateful to them that they deserve a little something exclusive. And if you want to join that little group, so far there's only 8 people, but room for more in my heart and on my Patreon account. I'll put the link in the video description. But anyhow, people are feeling uncertain and unstable in their incomes right now. So to have a man to whom they've given all their trust, all their devotion, who they literally worship as a god, telling them that if they don't send him 10% of their annual income, he's going to use a deity like some kind of ridiculous thug to cut their incomes down. That is playing on people's fears and insecurities in the worst possible way. That is demonic. Now, I'm not a religious person at all, obviously, because I read tarot cards, I make crystal jewelry, I meditate. I still consider Mahakali as my Ishta Devata. I love Hinduism. I still chant the Gayatri mantra every day, and I feel like, those legitimate Hindu practices have helped pull me out of the brainwashing from the fraud. Full respect to Hinduism. I can't believe that a terrible criminal man, this fraud who calls himself Nithyananda, he has the gall to claim that Kalabhairava is his own personal thug enforcer. I think that either Nithyananda is an atheist who has no problem making declarations about Hindu gods. He's either an atheist, so he's fearless and he doesn't think that they're ever going to make his karma catch up with him for all the rapes and all the mysterious deaths and all the murders of his disciples. Either he thinks he's going to get away with it because he doesn't believe in that divine power, or he is so batshit crazy that he doesn't know the difference between good and evil anymore, and he has gone full on demonic. Either way, playing on people's fears and insecurities in a time of financial global meltdown is wrong. It's either stupid and wrong, or it's evil and wrong, or it's criminal and wrong, or it's a weird combination of all three. But if this doesn't wake people up from his brainwashing, I don't know what will. Whoever has the government pull or the power to freeze his assets, to stop the wire transfers, whatever branch of the fake Nithyananda University is collecting payments that he's extorting from people by putting them into the fear of the wrath of Kalabhairava, who would not limit somebody's income because that's not what he exists for. Whoever pays that money are aiding and abetting the criminal activity of this man who is running away from his rape trial. And it's absolutely stupid, and I hope that people will have the wisdom at this point to not do it. You know, there are enough millionaires who are followers of his who, for whatever reason, haven't woken up. And I'm talking about Harvard educated, Stanford educated, highly intelligent, humorous, good people who I used to chat with and joke with at his programs because, you know, they're cool. There are some really, really good people who are very badly brainwashed by that fraud, and I don't want to see them lose their hard-earned money or the respect of their community because they're continuing to fund the criminal activity of a completely fake, narcissistic psychopath who eventually is going to get caught by Interpol and returned. So instead of sinking with the ship, wouldn't it be great if they could wake up and get out now? That's my little rant for today. I've become a big fan of a man named Raghav Shastri, who is a Hindu scholar and very, very well educated in Sanatana Dharma. I'm gonna put a link to his channel beneath this video too, because he has done some very interesting analysis of some of the brainwashing teachings of this fraud. And he has proven through Vedic scriptures that the way this man is behaving is demonic and not divine. He's proven that he's not a guru. He's basically disproven the control mechanism of what the fraud calls guru droha, where he makes people afraid to speak against him. He has proven that speaking out against the cult is actually in service to the divine, not in disservice to it. He had one of the so-called Spatika lingams analyzed and discovered it was actually glass, not even crystal. So one more lie shattered, no pun intended. He's just given some really cool talks about this fraud and using actual Hinduism instead of, you know, the sick fake teachings that this guru is spouting out in his sad songs. So check out Raghav Shastri, and if you have any questions, or you know, if you're somebody who is deprogramming from this cult, I really recommend seeking some psychological help. I'm not totally an advocate for the psychiatry or psychology industry. I don't know about pharmaceutical drugs. I don't know about all of their beliefs and their practices. And definitely I think Freud was a very sick individual who projected a lot of his disgusting Oedipus complex onto the general population. So I don't want to be one of those people claiming that that's the solution to all of life's problems, but it's a good start. You know, proper psychological evaluation, proper help from doctors who truly care, who have your best interest at heart, would be very highly recommended. I'm not saying go see any quack psychiatrist. I'm saying do some research, find somebody who can give proper cult deprogramming, proper counseling, proper help to you, who can help you through this difficult time. Because I know there are people watching this video who are on the fence. You still feel partially like that scammy sleaze, Swami G, scammy sleaze, has your best interest at heart. He doesn't. To him, you are not even a human being with rights. You're not an individual. You are dollar signs. You are slave labor. And to that fraud guru, a disciple is not an individual whose enlightenment he takes responsibility for, who he wants to see evolve and mature and embrace their power. To him, disciples are pawns on this chessboard. His opponent is who knows what. His opponent right now is the Indian judiciary trying to get him back to make him face justice. He sees all of you guys as a means to an end. His disciples are his cash cows. His disciples are his alibis. I know there was a First Nations lady in the United States, a Native American. He had actually called her to Ecuador to see if she could sneak him in to the reserve where she was born. It's absolutely effed up. He sees each and every one of you as somebody to take from, and he has no intention of giving you anything in return. Wake up. He does not have your best interest at heart. If you still feel connected to the deities, great. Connect with Kalabhairava and ask him to free you from the psychological bondage that the fraud who's constantly falsely invoking his name has put you into. You can definitely get out of it. And of course, there's a Facebook group called Nithyananda Cult Survivors Official, filled with people who have beautifully come out of that brainwashing, who have moved on with their lives, and they're even able to laugh about what they've gone through now because they're past it. There are people thinking of doing a class action lawsuit against him because of all the money they've paid and all the empty promises he's made. Good to connect with all of them too, maybe get in on it. And if you've suffered from that cult, if you've been abused in a program, if you've been abused as an ashramite or an Adinavasi, you matter. You know, I'm happy for you if you got out and you're taking your life back and you're pursuing your own interests again. You've connected with your family from a loving space again. You no longer feel like you need to distance yourself from people who abuse that fraud, because they're not abusing a master, they're abusing a manipulator, and he deserves to be abused. And, you know, welcome to real life once again if you've gotten out of that cult. If you feel like you've been badly abused by him and you just want to, you know, lash out, leave a comment below this and tell us what you've gone through, and I might just read it in another video so that your voice is heard, or maybe reach out and do an interview. Let's see. But I do believe it's doing some good to talk on YouTube about this terrible cult abuse, because it is helping people wake up. There are individuals commenting in that Cult Survivors official group every day saying that, you know, after hearing Jordan in his interview, they've realized it was false and come out of it. After hearing from Janardana Sharma's beautiful family, my God, what that family has gone through brings tears to my eyes. Those two girls, Lopamudra and Nandita, they come from a beautiful, loving, traditional Hindu family with parents who did nothing but raise them with all the best of everything. And they're being forced to go on camera and tell atrocious lies about their parents to support the fraudulent cult organization that's brainwashed them. It's like looking at Patty Hearst breaking into a bank with a machine gun. She's not a terrorist. You know, these girls are not the bad guys, but the shit that's coming out of their mouth is very, very bad. And it's sad, and it needs to be brought to an end. It needs to stop. They need to get psychological help and get reunited with their families. Everyone there who's being abused needs to get help and get reunited with their families. And I'm not going to stop talking and using YouTube as my own personal loudspeaker until that happens. So if you've witnessed or experienced something, leave a comment, join the Nithyananda Cult Survivors official Facebook group. If you're still coming out of that brainwashing, watch Raghav Shastri's videos. He makes a whole lot of sense, and it's from Sanatana Hindu Dharma, the original source scriptures, not the ones that shitty nitty blabs about that half of it he's pulling out of his ass and claiming that it's authentic. Really look at the original source and you can get free. So that's the end of my little rant here. For those of you who are in quarantine or in self-isolation, my heart goes out to you right now, but you can take this time to get to know yourself again, to look into what motivates you in life, and do some much needed soul searching. It's a good time for it. In my video about white precious opal, I said something I want to say again now. We don't need to think of this as social distancing. We can think of it as getting back to ourselves, making friends with yourself again. And a lot of us cult survivors, we really need to do that because it has been drummed into us that we are not real. We're just, what did he used to say? Not emissions, projections. That fraud told me once before I went to speak on stage that I was just a projection of his inner space in female form. That's the kind of bullshit that it took me time to deprogram from, to realize, wait a minute, I am my own person and it's awesome. I'm not just a projection of that fuck fraud. So yeah, if you've also been forced to, push yourself aside, put your likes aside, put your individuality aside, welcome back to you. And, another way he's exploiting this coronavirus issue, I'm sorry, I know I keep saying it's the end and then bringing one more thing up. As an animal rights activist and as a vegan, it pisses me off to no end that he has the audacity and the stupidity to claim that drinking buttermilk will save somebody from getting the coronavirus. He's using this global pandemic to boost the dairy industry. He claims that he is for cows, that Gomata, the mother cow, is the great divine mother in the form of an animal. And he's plugging an industry that rapes her, slaughters her calves, abuses her. It's so sickening. And he used to say, if you're outside of India and you can't get milk from a Goshala, you should be vegan. He's totally backpedaled on all of that. It's one more contradiction. It's stupid. And most of all, it's misleading. There are disciples of his out there who think that because they gave 10% of their salary, drink buttermilk, and stopped eating solid food, they're immune to the coronavirus. He's literally playing with people's lives and laughing about it from his CGI golden throne somewhere out there in, who knows which tropical island where he's getting away with murder, hiding out at. It's maddening. Anyhow, if you have anything to add to this, be my guest, leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.